For decades, Tom Silva appeared on your TV screen as the humble carpenter from Massachusetts. Calm, skilled, and unassuming. The guy who could fix anything on this old house. But behind the cameras, Tom Silva's life was far more extraordinary than anyone imagined. Since 1999, he had been quietly funding something that would shock even his closest fans. Families in California and Massachusetts had their homes rebuilt, without ever knowing who made it happen. And for over 25 years, this secret went untold, until 2025. What Tom has been doing with his fortune isn't just surprising. It changes the way you think about the man you've watched for decades. This is the story of Tom Silva like you've never seen him before. Tom Silva came into the world on January 17, 1947, in Lexington, Massachusetts. Born into a home where work was life and every pair of hands mattered. His father shaped stone. His older brother Dick learned the trade early. And Tom? He grew up as the youngest in a family that believed skill was earned, day by day. As a small boy, Tom watched his father repair stone walls around old New England homes. By age 8, he could mix mortar on his own. By 10, he was framing little sheds with his uncles, and carrying a scar from a chisel as a lifelong reminder of learning the hard way. Between ages 10 and 16, one project stood out, building a fallout shelter under their 1787 colonial home. 2 full years of digging, framing, and finishing by hand. It wasn't just work, it was a lesson in rhythm, precision, and seeing something rise from the ground. This moment planted a seed. Tom knew building wasn't just a job, it was his life. After graduating Lexington High School in 1965, Tom made a choice few would expect. He turned down a college scholarship. Why? He trusted his hands more than a classroom. Stories of his great-great-grandfather fighting at the Battle of Lexington gave him pride in work that lasts. School couldn't teach that. By 1966, Tom and his brother Dick launched Silva Brothers Construction in Arlington, Massachusetts. With a single pickup truck and $500 worth of tools, most borrowed, they started small. Attic remodels, minor upgrades, and word-of-mouth jobs. 10 jobs in their first year. Not glamorous. But it was the foundation for a company built to last. 2 years later, Tom completed his first solo kitchen expansion in Belmont. 12 days, hand-milled oak cabinets, no power tools. The project earned him $2,000, a fortune at the time, and the reputation for persistence and quality began to take root. By 1970, Silva Brothers expanded into roofing. Tom introduced a technique using old barnwood as a base for shingles, cutting material costs by 20%. But risk was always part of the craft. One stormy day, a roof collapsed. Tom barely escaped injury. That near disaster changed everything. Silva Brothers upgraded safety, planning, and methods. From then on, the business became synonymous with careful, thoughtful construction. In 1972, Tom married Susan, who quietly became the backbone of the company. She organized the books, managed a small office in their garage, and gave Tom the freedom to take on bigger projects. Together, they built more than just homes, they built a legacy. Life was never without challenges. In 1975, a client sued them for a faulty foundation. Tom didn't argue with lawyers, he rebuilt the structure himself, night after night, for 3 months. The client dropped the lawsuit and recommended them. That reputation, of standing by your work, carried Silva Brothers through the 1980s. And then, everything changed. In 1986, producer Russell Moorish of This Old House noticed Tom demonstrating dovetail joints at a trade show. Impressed, he arrived unannounced with a camera crew, testing Tom with a sagging porch repair. 2 hours later, the job was done, perfectly. Tom was hired as the show's general contractor. By March of that year, viewers saw Tom rebuild a Victorian staircase railing using reclaimed chestnut wood. What amazed people wasn't just the skill, it was the honesty. Tom hadn't learned from TV. He learned from real work. Tom's approach on This Old House wasn't always easy for the crew. In 1987, he refused to use power nailers, insisting on hand-nailing 500 shiplap boards, a method from the 1800s. It slowed filming by a day, but it produced perfection. In 1988, fans noticed his whistling Portuguese folk tunes while sanding wood, a reminder of his roots. By 1989, a scaffold collapsed during filming. Tom saved a cameraman at the cost of his own wrist, yet he continued filming. The message was clear: craftsmanship isn't just about tools, it's about heart, focus, and endurance. 1990 marked a pivotal project, restoring a 1790 colonial in Massachusetts. Tom treated the renovation like a time machine, hand-cutting over 400 mortise and tenon joints. Preservationists, the New York Times, and fellow builders took notice. By 1992, he innovated the Silva shim method to fix uneven floors in pre-1900 homes. Cedar wedges stacked layer by layer, allowing floors to settle naturally without cracks. Trade schools across New England adopted the method. In 1994, a handsaw snapped during a live demo. Tom treated his deep cut calmly on camera, joking about tools having minds of their own. The clip became legendary, a lesson in control and focus. By 1995, Tom's insistence on tradition shaped a personal moment with his nephew Charlie during an attic project. Prefabricated shortcuts clashed with Tom's old-school methods. Tradition prevailed, and Charlie later credited the experience with shaping his craft ethic. In 1996, Tom expanded Silva Brothers with a dedicated mill shop, personally calibrating a 1920s planer. Panels created here ended up in a Boston Museum exhibit, showcasing traditional craftsmanship at its finest. By 2002, his first Ask This Old House segment aired, a slate roof repair in Lynn, Massachusetts. 47 cracked tiles replaced by handmade replicas. Real care, real lessons. In 2005, Tom solved the hardwood floor warping problem using a hidden dehumidification trench, saving the homeowners $10,000 in future repairs. These small, clever fixes became his signature. Years of labor caught up with him. In 2007, 2 back surgeries threatened his career. But Tom returned to the show within weeks, using braces and careful technique to continue teaching viewers. By 2010, he balanced tradition and modern efficiency. Stained mahogany windows in a 1920s bungalow cut heating bills by 30%, showing that old methods could outperform modern shortcuts. In 2012, during a storm in Maine, Tom created a temporary gutter system using recycled copper, saving a home from water damage. Practical, affordable, and sustainable, Tom's work kept inspiring DIYers. By 2015, Silva Brothers had 25 employees and $5 million in annual revenue. Tom handed daily operations to Charlie but continued visiting job sites, spotting critical errors before they became disasters. In 2018, he embraced green building, crafting bamboo trusses for a hurricane-proof solar garage. By 2019, he learned hard lessons about supplier trust, recovering $50,000 lost to a scam. Every experience added wisdom, shaping the company's future. By 2020, Tom focused on legacy. Teaching his grandson dovetail joints, he combined tradition with modern safety gear, a small scene carrying immense meaning: craft matters, safety matters, family matters. In 2022, a historic Lexington in restoration showcased seismic reinforcement hidden within centuries-old pine beams. Preservationists hailed the work. For Tom, it was full circle, saving old homes while preserving their soul. 2023 saw Tom testing the limits of technology, 3D printed homes in Austin. Machines met tradition, and Tom pushed builders to rethink the future of craft. In 2024, he led a woodworking master class attended by over 5,000 people. 48 hours of hand planing, a demonstration that drove tool sales up 35% and inspired a return to traditional methods. Then came 2025. At 78, Tom fractured his hip. 6 weeks later, he returned to Ask This Old House, teaching ladder checkpoints and safety. He partnered with Charlie for a zero-waste tiny home project, which reached thousands online and inspired a movement in sustainable construction. And the secret: behind all this skill and humility, was his philanthropy. Since 1999, Tom had quietly funded fire recovery efforts for families in California and Massachusetts through the Silva Brothers Foundation. No recognition. Just rebuilding lives. 3 families knew firsthand what he had done, but the world did not, until 2025. Tom's influence extends far beyond TV. DIY channels adopt his methods, apprentices trained under him make fewer mistakes, and carpenters across the country still follow his approach. In April 2024, the National Housing Hall of Fame honored his 38-year journey. By July 2025, he announced a final special for this old house, promising never-before-seen footage, interviews, and stories. Away from cameras, Tom and Susan continued attending Portuguese festivals, carving rosaries, restoring antique tools, and mentoring craftsmen. His 200 vintage saws became one of the largest private collections in the U.S., a symbol of history preserved. Tom Silva is more than a carpenter. He is a teacher, a mentor, a preservationist, a philanthropist, and a man who believes craft is a way of life. From mixing mortar at 8, to rebuilding lives in secret, to teaching new generations of builders, the man you see on TV is only a fraction of his story. In 2026, his memoir will reveal even more lessons from mistakes, ethics, patience, and quiet moments that shaped a lifetime of work. Tom Silva isn't just a craftsman. He's a legacy. And for those who understand, the true measure of a man isn't the homes he builds, it's the lives he touches along the way. Tom Silva never saw his craft as his alone. Every year, he opened his doors to apprentices, teaching patience, precision, and respect for materials. Since 2010, over 250 carpenters trained under him. The results were clear. Apprentices who learned the Silva way made 15% fewer joinery mistakes than others. They learned that craftsmanship isn't just about finishing a project, it's about understanding every step, every cut, every joint. Tom's workshops became a rite of passage. Young builders arrived nervous, sawdust on their boots, and left with a sense of pride and a new philosophy: slow, deliberate work beats shortcuts every time. Away from the cameras, Tom found joy in restoring antique tools. His Arlington workshop is a shrine to woodworking history. Planes, chisels, levels, many over 100 years old, were revived under his careful hands. One of his prized finds, a distant handsaw from the 1820s, cost him $50 at a barn auction. Today, it's valued around $5,000. Every tool carried a story. Every restored piece became a lesson in patience and respect for craftsmanship. Through these restorations, Tom taught that tools are more than metal and wood, they are vessels of history. Each cut, each measurement, carries the echoes of those who worked before. For over 2 decades, Tom quietly gave back. Since 1999, through the Silva Brothers Foundation, he funded fire recovery projects for families in California and Massachusetts. 3 families had their homes rebuilt because of him. No recognition. No media coverage. Just support when it was needed most. Witnesses who saw the foundation in action described it as almost invisible. Materials delivered. Walls rebuilt. Lives restored. And yet, Tom never took credit. His legacy extended beyond TV fame, it was in lives rebuilt and futures secured. Even without social media, Tom's influence spread worldwide. DIY YouTube channels copied his techniques, garnering millions of views each year. Forums buzzed with debates about joinery methods, proper wood selection, and the best way to preserve old homes. His techniques, like the Silva shim method and his zero-waste practices, became touchstones for a generation of builders. Tools flew off shelves, apprentices flourished, and viewers learned that precision and care trumped speed and convenience. In a world chasing instant results, Tom Silva reminded everyone that mastery takes time, and patience is its own reward. In April 2024, Tom stepped onto a different kind of stage, the National Housing Hall of Fame. Honored for his 38-year journey on this old house, he became part of American housing history. Surveys showed his influence inspired over 50 million viewers to attempt home projects safely. To be recognized alongside the most trusted voices in construction wasn't about fame, it was about shaping the industry for the better. Even then, Tom remained grounded. Awards didn't change him. They were reminders that care, persistence, and honesty build more than homes, they build trust. By 2025, Tom embraced the tiny home movement. Partnering with Charlie, he oversaw a zero-waste project in New England. Every board mattered. Reclaimed barnwood framed the structure, and leftover scraps became shelves and brackets. The 10-part online series reached thousands, inspiring a generation to reconsider waste. Charlie explained it simply, Tom's rule? Waste nothing. Every piece has a purpose. It wasn't just about sustainability, it was about respect. Respect for materials, history, and the people who would live in these homes. Tom began writing a memoir, reflecting on decades of work, mistakes, and quiet victories. Early excerpts reveal the value of a single bad nail that changed his approach to every board thereafter. Set for release in 2026, publishers are already calling it a must-read. Tom's words aim to teach more than carpentry, they teach ethics, patience, and the quiet moments that shape a life. It's a way to pass wisdom forward, ensuring that the next generation doesn't just learn how to build, but how to build right. Beyond work, Tom cherished his Portuguese heritage. For over 50 years, he and Susan attended the Provincetown Portuguese Festival each June. In 2025, more than 10,000 people celebrated the 78th annual event. Tom carved wooden rosaries, a skill passed down from his grandfather, teaching festival-goers the steps of traditional carving. To the community, he wasn't just a celebrity, he was part of their culture, a craftsman who lived by the same values he taught on television. At 78, Tom still visited Silva Brothers sites weekly, performing audits, spotting errors, and mentoring. Retirement? Not yet. He continued to push boundaries, even after a fractured hip in January 2025. 6 weeks later, he was back on Ask This Old House, teaching ladder safety with new ladder checkpoints. Letters poured in from older DIYers, grateful for his honesty and guidance. Even in his later years, Tom proved that experience, patience, and careful observation matter more than age. In 2023, Tom tested 3D printed homes in Austin. Rather than standing aside, he grabbed tools, pressed his hands against the printed layers, and found gaps only traditional joinery could fix. He argued that the future wasn't about choosing between machines or tradition, it was about combining both. Builders debated for weeks. Some called him old-fashioned, others saw genius. Through it all, Tom forced the industry to slow down, think, and honor the craft. Tom Silva's life is proof that influence isn't always loud. He built homes, restored tools, saved families after disasters, mentored generations, and preserved history, all while keeping his humility intact. Television made him famous. His actions made him unforgettable. Behind every nail, every mortise, and every hand-carved piece, there's a story of patience, care, and integrity. For those who follow in his footsteps, the lesson is clear: craft isn't just what you make, it's how you live. Tom Silva's work isn't just about wood and nails, it's about patience. For decades, he has insisted that a proper job requires time, focus, and respect for every piece of material. He often told apprentices, rushing is the enemy of quality. Every cut, every joint, every board deserves your full attention. That philosophy shaped not just buildings, but people. Builders learned that slowing down doesn't cost time, it preserves value. Even in his personal projects, whether restoring tools or creating custom furniture, Tom's patience turned ordinary tasks into lessons in craftsmanship and life. Most people know Tom Silva as a TV carpenter, but his generosity goes unnoticed by the public eye. Beyond the Silva Brothers Foundation, he quietly donated materials and expertise to schools, community centers, and historical societies. One Massachusetts school received a fully renovated woodworking lab, complete with vintage tools and benches, all funded and assembled by Tom personally. Teachers later reported that students were inspired to pursue careers in trades simply because of his attention to detail and hands-on teaching. These quiet acts demonstrate a man whose influence extends far beyond the camera lens, touching lives without fanfare or recognition. Tom has always been a guardian of tradition, but he isn't stuck in the past. From solar-integrated builds to sustainable bamboo trusses, he proves that historical craftsmanship can coexist with innovation. Builders often seek his advice on blending old methods with new technology. He challenges them to question whether a shortcut truly saves time, or if it erodes the soul of the work. His approach forces the construction industry to slow down, evaluate methods, and respect the lessons of history while embracing the tools of the future. TV made Tom Silva a household name, but it's his methods that shaped an entire generation. DIY channels, online tutorials, and countless forums reference his techniques. Many have millions of views each year. Even younger audiences, born decades after his first appearance on This Old House, are discovering his work. They see hand-cut joints, zero-waste builds, and the quiet philosophy of doing things right. Tom's legacy isn't measured in ratings. It's measured in the thousands of hands learning, practicing, and mastering the craft he has dedicated his life to. Tom Silva's love for history doesn't stop at buildings, it extends to tools. By 2025, he had amassed 200 vintage saws, one of the largest private collections in the country. Restoring these tools isn't a hobby, it's a lesson in respect for the past. Each piece carries the story of previous craftsmen. Each cut and polish breathes new life into a century-old technique. Collectors, apprentices, and historians alike have marveled at the care Tom puts into his collection. But for him, it's never about fame or money, it's about continuity, tradition, and keeping the craft alive. Even as he aged, Tom refused to slow down. In January 2025, a fall from a ladder fractured his hip. Doctors warned months of recovery. 6 weeks later, he was back on set. Teaching ladder checkpoints, safety routines, and patient techniques for climbing. His return wasn't just personal courage, it was a lesson in determination. Older DIYers, who had watched him for decades, found inspiration in his resilience. Tom showed that age doesn't define ability. Experience, wisdom, and careful planning do. Tom Silva has always treated materials with respect. Every board, every scrap has value. His tiny home projects showcased this philosophy in action. Leftover barnwood became brackets, shelves, and structural supports. He didn't just teach sustainability, he modeled it. By reusing materials, planning projects meticulously, and eliminating waste, Tom encouraged builders to consider the broader impact of their work. For him, zero waste isn't just a trend, it's a moral and practical philosophy embedded in decades of craftsmanship. Behind the public persona, Tom's family has always been his anchor. Susan, his wife of over 50 years, managed the company's finances and kept operations steady. His nephew Charlie learned directly from Tom, inheriting not only techniques but values. Family wasn't just about support, it was part of the craft. Lessons learned at the workbench were passed down to the next generation, blending skill, patience, and ethics. Together, they prove that legacy isn't just about what you build, it's about who you shape along the way. As 2026 approaches, Tom has begun documenting his lifetime of work. His memoir promises to reveal the stories behind every nail, every mortise, and every choice. It's a chronicle of mistakes, triumphs, ethics, and patience, a guide for anyone who wishes to understand not just carpentry, but a philosophy of life. Publishers call it a must-read. For fans, it's a rare glimpse behind the calm, skilled persona seen on TV. For apprentices, it's a blueprint for integrity and craft. Tom Silva's name will forever be tied to American craftsmanship. From 1790 homes to modern sustainable builds, his work demonstrates that respect for tradition can meet innovation. More than 50 million viewers have learned from him. Hundreds of apprentices carry forward his methods. DIYers worldwide emulate his techniques. And the families he's helped, quietly and anonymously, continue to rebuild lives. His influence transcends television, it's woven into the very fabric of American home building. Tom Silva's influence is subtle, yet monumental. He never sought the spotlight for recognition. His fame on television was incidental, a byproduct of decades of dedication, patience, and careful craftsmanship. Behind the camera, he shaped generations of builders, not with words, but with example. Apprentices who once followed him on job sites now lead workshops of their own, teaching the techniques Tom pioneered. The Silva shim method, hand-planing precision, zero-waste philosophy, these are not just skills, but a code of craftsmanship that continues to spread quietly through communities, schools, and professional trade networks. In 2025, even at the age of 78, Tom Silva remained hands-on. He oversaw a series of restoration projects across New England. Each project, whether it was a colonial home, a coastal cottage, or a historical museum, received the same meticulous attention he had always applied. One standout project was a 1750s farmhouse in Massachusetts. The beams were cracked, floors sagging, and original shutters barely holding. Most contractors would have replaced the old wood entirely. But Tom carefully repaired each beam, reinforcing with hidden steel supports, restoring shutters with period-accurate joinery, and hand-finishing floors so that they retained their original charm. The project took over 6 months, but the results were timeless. Preservation societies lauded his work, emphasizing how it respected the history of the structure while ensuring safety and functionality. To Tom, it wasn't about accolades, it was about fidelity to the craft. Fans of this old house see Tom Silva calmly measuring, cutting, and assembling. But behind the scenes, his days were physically grueling. Years of lifting, bending, and repetitive motions had taken a toll. In 2025 alone, he faced a fractured hip, back strain, and wrist fatigue. Yet, he refused to slow down. When asked about retirement, he smiled, "As long as I can lift a plane or hold a saw, I'll keep building." His dedication inspired everyone around him, crew members, apprentices, and homeowners alike. They watched not just a master carpenter, but a man who lived the principles he preached: integrity, patience, and responsibility. Tom's love for tools is well known among collectors, but it's more than a hobby, it's a philosophy. Each hand plane, chisel, and saw tells a story of the craftsman who used it decades ago. By restoring these tools, Tom preserves history, teaching the next generation that craftsmanship is more than technique, it is continuity. His collection of over 200 vintage saws, carefully maintained and catalogued, became a resource for historians and carpenters alike. Rare pieces, like an 1820s distant handsaw, were more than antiques, they were living lessons, connecting the past to the present. Tom Silva's generosity extends far beyond his public persona. Since 1999, he quietly funded rebuilding efforts for families affected by disasters, including California wildfires and Massachusetts storms. 3 families, whose homes had been destroyed, received full support from the Silva Brothers Foundation. Materials, labor, and guidance arrived without fanfare. The families never sought recognition, and Tom never asked for thanks. To him, this work was simply an extension of his craft. Rebuilding homes was not just about wood and nails, it was about restoring hope, safety, and dignity. Tom Silva's influence is also deeply personal. His nephew Charlie, who grew up watching him work, now leads Silva Brothers Construction, ensuring the company maintains its original values. Apprentices trained under Tom have opened workshops, mentored others, and carried forward his meticulous methods. This passing of knowledge is deliberate. Tom's workshops, now part of trade schools and community programs, emphasize not only skills, but ethics and patience. He believes a good craftsman must understand history, respect materials, and care for the people who will use his work. Though Tom never sought fame, recognition came naturally. In April 2020,